it isn't too great a stretch for me to say that if everything that we needed for the physical journey was handled for us in the moment of our spark of moving from non-being to being, if everything that we needed in that tiny little infinitesimally small spark of life, you could put 1 billion of them on the head of a pin, that's how small it was, that everything you needed, there was a future pull in there, and everything you needed for this physical journey was handled there for you. And look around you, it was. Your height, your weight, your eye color, virtually everything about you as a physical being was handled for you. There was nothing for you to do. It's not that great a stretch for me to say that if everything that you needed for the physical journey was handled, that everything you needed for the rest of the journey was handled in there as well. If you just keep your hands off of it, if you just let it be, the Beatles had it right. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. So, in the process of looking at this great teaching that I have been involved in for the past 6 months or so, it's called Know Thyself. And this is something that I have been reading, studying, looking at, in an attempt to understand the highest place within myself. And I want to share a little bit about this with you here this evening. In order to produce something that is greater than oneself, one has to get out from oneself, rise above oneself, detach oneself, and enter higher regions so as to capture elements from these regions. There is a higher place within yourself. And this higher place, I'm going to read just a little bit, if you'll indulge me on this, and then I'll lighten it up a little bit, all right? Now, some of this is going to sound a little weird, but that's okay. I just like to point it out so that you don't think I don't know that when it gets a little weird, that I don't really realize that it is. This is an ancient, ancient teaching. Our higher self, the place from which you originated, in the new book, The Shift, I have divided it into 4 chapters. From is the first chapter, ambition is the second chapter, to is the third, and meaning is the fourth, which is the original title of the movie, The Shift. And I'm speaking here about from, like where we originate from, where we come from. Our higher self, which is where you originated, you came from God, you came from Source. Everything did. There's no question about that anywhere. Even quantum physics teaches us this, that it is energy itself, which has formless, which originates everything. So our highest self is perfect. There's a part of you that is perfect. Now listen to this. Omniscient, which means knows everything. There's a piece of you, I admit it's a very small piece, and hopefully my piece is just a little bit larger, otherwise I should be sitting down and listening to what you have to say. But I've studied this and practiced this, and I really believe that there is a part of me that knows everything. And Almighty, a fragment of God Himself, a pure, transparent, luminous quintessence is how it is put. So this highest place within yourself, this, like it was non-being, 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 and then in one split second, it went to being. And there was a spark of God that was you. And this spark of God that was you got lost when we made this shift. Like the first moment of your conception, that moment that you went from non-being to being, You think that it was your parents who did this, that you came from your parents. But I'm speaking on a quantum level here. You didn't come from your parents. If you took the tiny little spark that began you and tried to find its origination point and reduced it down to its smallest, tiniest fragment and ultimately put it into what we call a particle accelerator and revved it up as fast as you can rev it up and collided it and try to find out what was the basis, what is the spark that began you, what did it look like? You open up that particle accelerator, you look inside, and there's nothing there. You came from energy. And then you were in your parents' womb, your mother's womb, for this 9 months. And in those 9 months of being inside of your mother's womb, everything that you needed for the physical journey and for the entire journey was taken care of. It was all handled for you. There was nothing for you to do. In the Tao, it says, you're doing nothing. You're just being done. Have you ever had that awareness? You ever look in the mirror and realize that this has nothing to do with anything that you're doing? You're just being done. Things start happening. I go to shave now, and I have to do my ears. For what? I don't need hair there. I need it. This is where I need it, all right? But it's, and there's a part of you that just recognizes. I mean, you can lift them, and you can shape them, and you can put new things, but you're not fooling anybody, They're just what they are. So in the first 9 months of your life, everything was handled for you. It says the Tao does nothing. The Tao, what is the Tao? God, the source. It does nothing, but it leaves nothing undone. Do less, achieve more. Stop interfering. This is all out of the Tao. Live from that place within yourself. And as you do that, you begin to realize that the more you interfere with who you are and what you came here to do, the less that you get done. That's a very hard concept for us to grasp. So let me continue with this. So our higher self is perfect, it's omniscient, it's almighty, it's a fragment of God himself, a pure, transparent, luminous quintessence. Now he says, yes, but if this is so, how is it that this self allows us to make mistakes? If we have this perfect spark of God within us, how come we make mistakes? It is this that is so difficult to understand. How can there be a being within us who sees and knows everything and is all-powerful, and yet who is totally unmoved, who never feels or expresses any pain whatever we do? Why does he accept situations that are not in our best interest? And when we speak to him of our philosophy and our dreams and our hopes and our plans, why does it do nothing to put them into effect? If God is within me, if I am a piece of God. We are not separated from him, and yet when we are suffering and trying to improve the situation, he remains coldly indifferent and leaves us to our plight. Is there no way of touching him? It is very important to get to know this higher self. For he is so far above our own being that when he does decide to act, nothing is impossible for him. Nothing. And that's what I'm speaking about. There is a knowing that I have within me that there is a spark of God that if I can just move that spark from a spark to a fragment, and from a fragment to a particle, and from a particle just to a little piece, and if I can get that to be just 1% of my being and know how to acknowledge it and to access it and to make it work for me in my life, that everything that I need to know is there for me. And anything that I want to accomplish and anyone that I want to meet and anything that I want to happen is there because my higher self is perfect, omniscient, and almighty. That's who you are. And you've come to accept something much less than that. And it is to this that I want to address this evening, this talk. So stay with me, because it's going to get really good. Now, so as we have said, he says, everything is possible to our higher self. The only problem is in getting him to act. and we don't know how to make him do what we want. It is a problem that can reach tragic proportions in our lives. How can we spark the goodwill of this being who is so far above us and whom we represent so inadequately here on earth? It only begins to notice us, he says, this higher self of yours. I'm talking to God here. You're all God. You're what you came from. The initiates teach that it only begins to notice us, this higher part of us, that can make anything happen and give us his attention is when we finally decide that we want to get to know it. So that's the first step. Making a decision to get to know this higher place within yourself and to overcome those things that I spoke about a little while ago that are what you believe is true about yourself. I was on the phone today with a dear friend, talking to her for a long time, and she was telling me all the reasons why people can't get themselves into maximum shape, why they are overweight, why they are tired. And she kept going on and on and on with all of this stuff. And the more she would say these things to me, the more I was jumping through the phone, trying to explain to her that I am not going to go in front of several thousand people tonight and talk to them about how to argue for your limitations and to argue for why you can't do what you do. I said, you're talking to somebody who in 29 years, for 29 years of my life, I ran 8 miles every day and missed one day in 29 years. It didn't make any difference how tired I was. It didn't make any difference where I was, if I was on an airplane, if I had 104 fever. It didn't make any difference because I have within me an internal kind of a knowing that if I want to stay in the maximum shape for myself, and Jorge Cruz taught me that, I had to remind myself with his wonderful book, The Belly Fat Cure. Just get rid of the sugar and get off of your ass and do something. If you want the qualities of your higher self to flow down into your lower self, so you have this higher self, you have this lower self. The great teacher Vivekananda came over to this country in the early part of the last century, 1907, 1908. He said, in the springtime, go out and observe the blossoms on the fruit trees. He said, the blossoms vanish of themselves as the fruit grows. So too will the lower self vanish as the divine grows within you. This is about letting the divine grow within you. This is about trusting your intuition. This is about knowing that there is a force in the universe that you have just got a rusted link to that you're going to clean the rust up from. You're going to find, the title of this talk is about moving your life from ambition to meaning. You're going to find that meaning in your life. I wrote in the shift, this, where's my copy of the shift? This was by Joel Goldsmith. It was instrumental when I wrote this book this last year. This is just, it's the companion book to the movie. Then there are those, he said, who reach a stage in which they realize the futility of this constant striving and struggling for the things that perish, things which, after they are obtained, prove to be shadows. It is at this stage that some persons turn from this seeking for things in the outer realm to a seeking for them from God. I'm one of those people. One of those people who was called by something called a passion. And when you have that passion, there is something that you can do. You can activate this higher self within you. And you can begin to create a current that flows between this higher self and this lower self. And when you do, this lower self begins to disappear. It's like thinking of it as like a container inside of you. And this container has only what you want to create for yourself in it. That's all that's in there. And so it's been filled with all of the things that you believe to be true. I wrote a book about all of this just recently and did a PBS special on it called Excuses Be Gone. And all of these excuses, all of these things that we've come to believe are true about ourselves, we find out that they don't hold any truth at all. That if we really want to get rid of these things that we believe are true, like it's going to take a long time, it's going to be very difficult, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too fat, I don't have enough energy. All of these things, I went through every one of those excuses and had you look at, in the last portion of that book, a paradigm for change. Beginning to see that just because you believe that it is true, don't believe everything that you think. In fact, don't believe hardly anything that you think. Because as you believe what you think, you find out that it's not 100% guaranteed that it's true. So you want to shift it. But before I go into how to get that current flowing between the higher self and the lower self, and then how to activate it, and then into how to have your wishes fulfilled, I want to bring someone up here on the stage. She has been with me, she's been with me since she was born. She's now 28 years old, almost, and is getting married, can you believe it, in January. And her name is Sky. She is one of the angels in my life. She's been singing. She has her own CD, which I want to show, called You Inspire Me. She sang on many of my PBS specials, in fact, on virtually all of them. And I asked her to come here tonight and just sing a couple of songs to break it up and bring some beauty up here on the stage. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you my beautiful daughter singing from her CD, You Inspire Me, Sky Dyer. I'll move that. Hi, sweetie.
I want the whole stage.
Oh, you're going to rearrange the stage? Is it the way you want it? This is okay?
Hello, San Diego. I'm so happy to be here tonight with all of you. I'm going to sing 2 songs for you all tonight, and the first song I'm going to sing is a song I wrote, and this song came about because my dad had called me at an ungodly early hour and said, Sky, I have an idea for you. You're going to write a song, and it's going to be called You Inspire Me. And I'm also going to do a PBS special on inspiration. So I said, okay, because you don't really say no to him. He is the master. So,
all right, never mind that.
So the next day, I sat at the piano, and it came pretty easy. And I think that's because we can be inspired by so many things, and I'm surrounded by inspiration. I am taught by my dad and my mom. But here's the song, and I hope you like it. Do you ever stop and think about your life and what it all means? Our lives are so full of miracles. I hope every person sees you have something inside that brings joy to your soul and makes your heart sing. We all share the same big blue sky and the power to do anything. You inspire me to be everything that I desire, and everything I do is to be in touch with you. In every day of my life, I dream a little higher, and it all comes back to you and how you make me so inspired. Sometimes I feel that it's right in front of me, and I have to reach out. Strength comes from knowing that you need someone to help you out. You inspire me to be everything that I desire, and everything I do is to be in touch with you. In every day of my life, I dream a little higher, and it all comes back to you and how you make me so inspired. We all have a choice to feel the love deep within us, the freedom to hear our own voice, and the chance to make our path in life a little clearer. Oh, you inspire me to be everything that I desire, and everything I do is to be in touch with you. In every day of my life, I dream a little higher, and it all comes back to you and how you make me so inspired. Do you ever stop and think about your life? Thank you. I'm gonna still. Thank you so much. This next song I'm going to sing is a really special song to me. And I learned of this song because there was a picture that my older sister Tracy sent to my dad, and it had some words below it, and I never really paid attention. But I learned later that there were lyrics to a song, a great song, called Leader of the Band by Dan Fogelberg. And the song tells a story of a man who didn't die with his music in him. He knew what his passion was, and he knew what his purpose was in this life. And this song reminds me of my dad, because he's here to teach all of us. And Dad, we are so grateful and thankful for you. So this is for you. A lonely child, alone and wild, a cabinet maker's son. His hands were meant for different work, but his heart was known to none. He left his home and went his alone and solitary way. He gave to me a gift I know I never can repay. A quiet man of music, denied a simpler fate. He tried to be a soldier once, but his music wouldn't wait. He earned his love through discipline, a thundering velvet hand. His gentle means of sculpting souls took me years to understand. The leader of the band is tired and his eyes are growing old, but his blood runs through my instrument and his song is in my soul. My life has been a poor attempt to imitate the man. I'm just a living legacy to the leader of the band. My brothers' lives were different, for they heard another call. One went to Chicago, and the other to St. Paul. And I'm in Colorado when I'm not in some hotel, living out this life I chose and come to know so well. I thank you for your music and your stories of the road. I thank you for your freedom when it came my time to go. I thank you for your kindness and the times when you got tough. And Papa, I don't think I said I love you near enough. The leader of the band is tired and his eyes are growing old. But his blood runs through my instrument and his song is in my soul. My life has been a poor attempt to imitate the man. I'm just a living legacy to the leader of the band. I'm just a living legacy to the leader of the band. I am a living legacy to the leader of the band. Thank you.
Good night. My goodness. Sorry. Just don't have kids if you don't want that to happen to you, all right? Thank you, Sky. That was so beautiful. You touched me so much. I love that song. And thank you, Tracy, for that beautiful picture and the words you put under it that hangs in my office so proudly. So, I was speaking about the higher self and making access to the lower self. And I want to share with you this one exercise that I learned, that I have been practicing, and that is very profound. If you want the qualities of your higher self, remember, I'm speaking here now about God, the God within you, the almighty, omniscient person that you are, the energy that is your birthright, but you have lost sight of because of your coming to believe things to be true, which only take you to places called ordinary. If you want the qualities of your higher self to flow down into your lower self, you're going to have to bring your imagination into play. Now, I'll be speaking in the last part of tonight's talk about the power of the imagination. It's the greatest gift you've ever been given. And everything that exists in the physical world once started in someone's imagination, including you. If you want the qualities of your higher self to flow down into this lower self, where you can become this almighty, omniscient, omnipotent being, you're going to have to bring your imagination into play. You are down here on earth. Using your imagination, you focus on your higher self in the world above and picture him looking down at you. In other words, from that higher level, you look down and see yourself and the imperfect conditions in which you live. Keeping this thought before you, you set in motion a current, an invisible current that flows between the self that is above and the self that is below. In this way, you are restoring the vital link between you, for from down here, you are thinking that you are up there, and up there, you are conscious that you are down here, thinking of yourself up above. It's very difficult to explain this clearly, as you can see. At the same time, you divide yourself, you also unify yourself. You divide yourself into two, one above and one below. The one above, your true self, watches the one below as he meditates on that self above. And in this way, an extraordinary current is established between the two, making it possible for your superconscious to develop. You stay with your eyes closed, conscious at the same time that you are there in your room, a living, thinking being, while your all-powerful, omniscient higher self above sees his reflection and recognizes himself in you. Seeing himself, he smiles at you, perhaps even laughs a little. And you watch from below and begin to get to know him while he watches you from above. In this way, the gulf between the higher and the lower poles of your being begin to narrow until one day it disappears and they are fused into one. When this happens, your lower self no longer exists. That lower self, the ego, which is not a true reality, disappears, and all that is left is your real higher self. No more weakness, no more discouragement, no more darkness. You become omniscient, immortal, and eternal. Now, it sounds like, well, I'll just go ahead and do that, and it's all going to just work out for me. But what I'm really saying here is that it's an exercise that if you begin to practice it for about 30 minutes a day in your meditation and begin to picture this higher part of you, your origination place, the spark of God that is you, where you came from. Not just because I'm speaking from a spiritual perspective, but whoever the quantum physicists are that are watching and listening tonight, whoever they are as well, they all know that it is an invisible field of energy from which all things originate, to which all things return. That is your essence. It is your true self. And if you can just get that higher self to become 1 or 2 or 3% of who you are, you can begin to access through your intuition the kinds of things that your false self doesn't allow. Muktananda called the ego the false self, because in those first 9 months of your existence, from that spark of God that you were, when everything that you needed for this physical journey was handled in there in this miraculous way that is just too profound and too mysterious for us even to begin to fathom, isn't it? On my birthday, on May the 10th this week, I was invited to a very special showing of a movie that I'm in, and I didn't even know I was in it. The movie is called Toy Story 3, which will be out on June the 18th. And the movie that precedes the Toy Story 3 is a 4-minute movie called Day and Night. And I am one of the characters in Day and Night. I gave a lecture in 1977 called How to Be a No-Limit Person. And they took a piece of that out. And the two characters, this is an animated film, and the two characters at Pixar Studios, they were so nice to us. My daughter, Serena, was with me, and friends, and it was just a very, very powerful day. And they showed the film a couple of times, and we had some 3- and 4-year-olds with us. And one character is day and one character is night, and they're both afraid of each other. Day doesn't like night, day doesn't understand night, night doesn't understand day. Why are things so bright? Why are things so dark? Why do you go to sleep? Why are you awake? Why? And so on. And there's these opposites, which is what the physical world, the material world looks like, isn't it? In the Bhagavad Gita, it teaches us to fuse and meld these dichotomies, bring them together into a oneness, which is where we originated from. And if you read the shift, you'll read the first chapter, it's called From, and we came from oneness. And we came from nothingness. Learning nothingness and oneness while we're here in two-ness is very difficult to even talk about, let alone explain. But the two characters come together, and they're fighting each other throughout the whole thing, and they don't understand each other. And then this voice at the end of the film from a radio tower, which is my voice, says something to the effect that everyone just wants to, has a great fear of the unknown. They only want to do what they're familiar with, which is what I've been speaking about here tonight. You know, that we believe things to be true about ourselves and we just stay here. And we don't know that the only way we can get here is through this higher part of ourselves, through the God that we are. And there's no blasphemy in this. This is not a religious talk. This is just a scientific and spiritual truth. And as I say, to me, the most beautiful things in all the universe are the most mysterious. They poke each other kind of in the stomach, and they join hands, and off they go, and that's the end of the movie. And you never know. If that was 1977, I was 37 years old. I'm now 70. And it's going to be out there for, millions, hundreds of millions of children to look at and see and participate in. And it's the great mystery, isn't it? That's what the Tao teaches us. Live the mystery. Don't be afraid to wander into the unknown. Don't be afraid to know that this music that you came here to play is calling you. It's begging you. You can't fulfill somebody else's dharma. You can't do it the way your family wants you to do it. You can't do it the way they did it before. You have to go within and know that this is my calling. Abraham Maslow taught me when I was a young doctoral student, you must learn to be independent of the good opinion of other people. You must learn to detach yourself from outcome. That's what self-actualizing people do. Those are the two most important qualities. Detachment from outcome. You don't do what you do because of what you're going to make or what kind of rewards you're going to get or how people are going to like you. You do what you do because it's your passion, because you won't allow anything else to be but what you feel inside. It's what I used to call being a scurvy elephant. And you've heard me say it many times, if you've listened to me over the years. When I lived in a foster home and a series of orphanages when I was a young boy, I came home from school in the 3rd grade, and I said to Mrs. Scarf, the lady who ran the place, "What's a scurvy elephant?" And she said, "A what?" I said, "I heard Mrs. Poole telling the principal outside the classroom that Wayne Dyer was in her classroom and he was a scurvy elephant." And she got on the phone and she called the principal, and the principal said, "Oh, that's not what she said at all. She said that he wasn't a scurvy elephant. She said he was a disturbing element in her classroom." You have to be a disturbing element. You have to go within, find what it is that you know you want to do, and not get to the end of your life like Ivan Illich and say, what if my whole life has been wrong? What if it was wrong? What if I didn't fulfill that thing that I know? And when I get these callings now, and there's no age limit on this. I mean, you all see the words up there, Hay House. I mean, it's all over the place. Louise Hay started this company when she was 61 years old. She's now 83 or 84 years old and going just as strong as she ever did. It was like there's just something inside some people that they have a calling and they have a knowing. I'm just one of them. This is just what I've always done. Refuse to let somebody else dictate what it is that I would be or could be or ought to be. So when we were born, the moment that we were born, think about those first 9 months inside your mother's womb. Or are there any pregnant ladies here tonight? Where are you? Anybody? Nobody's doing it anymore? What's that? Sky, you sit down. You're not married. No? Because I wanted to give a... Well, come up here. I can't see you from here. Where are you? There you are. You're the only one? Bad girl. I've written 4 children's books. I'll have to give you... Oh, here comes somebody else. They're slowly coming up. Incredible You. Would you read that to your growing baby now? Like tonight? Start every day. Thank you. And I'd like to give this to you. Come on, move. What is the matter with you? Come on. Run up here. Would you read this to your baby, your growing baby inside? What a miracle. Can you believe what a miracle's happening inside you? Do you think of that every day? Yeah, I've got one for you too. Dum, 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 dum. Unstoppable me. You're unstoppable. You don't, I want to see. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. There you go. One more? Here we go. Start reading tonight, okay? Yeah, because that growing little perfect being, that great Misty, thank you. God bless you, sweetheart. Congratulations. Those perfect little beings, this great mystery, there's nothing, moms to be, there's nothing for you to do. What are you going to do? Get in there and say, I'd like the eyes to be this color. I'd like to change this around. I don't think that there's nothing for you to do. Somehow, the divine organizing intelligence, the God of which you are a piece, a spark, a fragment, had a knowing about everything and how it ought to be. And there was nothing for you to worry about. There was nothing for you to do. In the recovery movement, we call this letting go and letting God, don't we? Letting go and letting God. I know, I'm standing up here before you, and in a few months I'll celebrate my 23rd year of not having any alcohol go through this body. My friend Patty Davis, President Reagan's daughter, who was a cocaine addict, wrote an essay in Newsweek magazine, and we've become friends and we've communicated. And her essay was brilliant because what she said is, I tried to stop disappointing my father. I stopped trying to stop disappointing my mother, my family, my friends, and all of that. She said, but I was only able to get myself clean of this addiction when I decided that I no longer wanted to disappoint God. That we come from a place of well-being. We come from a place of perfection. And when we allow 31% of our children to become obese, and when we allow our entire generation of people to have a shorter life expectancy than their parents, and when we get our whole population addicted to taking pills in order to get through their days, we need to return to the place from which we originated, where none of that took place. I have here in the audience tonight a friend who has become a lifesaver to me. When the day that I was diagnosed with leukemia, she happened, quote, to be outside my place on Maui, waiting for me. Just wanted to meet me, and because she had been doing an awful lot of work on helping to transform people's health and habits. Her name is Pam McDonald. She's sitting right over there. And Pam has written a book that'll be out with Hay House coming up in October called The Perfect Gene Diet. And what she has done is gone within and looked at the genetic codes within each and every one of us and designed, what she did is design for me a diet and a program that was consistent with who I am genetically in my blood. And it's totally, completely transformed my life. She has a practice up in Danville. She's one of the most beautiful human beings that I've ever been around. Her name is Pam McDonald, and you look for her book in October, The Perfect Gene Diet. It's going to transform some of those things that I talked about before. Thanks for being here, Pam. God bless you. Love you. So this non-doing status that we were in, we come in, we're born into this world, and we take on something called ambition. And ambition is the time in our adult life, or our child's life, when we develop this, what Muktananda called the false self. And most of us live our lives on the basis of this false self. And this false self is really an idea. It's an idea that's called the ego. You can't find it because it's virtually the cause of all of our problems. I mean, I have a quote at the chapter on ambition. From Ramana Maharshi. He said, all unhappiness is due to the ego. With it comes all your troubles. If you would deny the ego and scorch it by ignoring it, you would be free. You would be free. And that freedom from the ego is something that I have worked on in my life, to a point now where all I see anymore, especially after studying the works that I've been reading from here tonight, about knowing what it means to be an initiate and live from that higher self, that what I see in everyone that I encounter now is the unfolding of God. I don't see separation. I see a kind of thing that unifies us in such a spectacular way, and it's like, it's one of the hardest things for us to get. Ego, E-G-O, edging God out. E-G-O. So we're born. God, the Tao, divine mind, soul, spirit, whatever you call it. You can be an atheist and you still know that there is some kind of an invisible intelligence that allows things to be. It's as hard for me to contemplate a watch without a watchmaker as it is to contemplate a universe without a creator, for me. I just can't imagine a simple little thing like a watch existing without a watchmaker. And imagine the complexity of a universe which has trillions and trillions of pieces to it without some kind of a creative force in the universe, whatever you want to call it. The opening line of the Tao Te Ching says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. So the first thing you do when you put your name on something, you've lost it. When you're speaking from the higher self, the place that moves from ordinary up to here, because you've got the thing and you've got the name for it. Two separate things. But we're talking about oneness, and we've reduced it to two-ness. It's like taking the concept of zero and trying to divide it and tell you what half of zero looks like. It's not possible. Zero doesn't allow for division, does it? Nor does God, or soul, or spirit, or higher consciousness. It doesn't allow for it. So you were born, and your parents looked at you and said, great work, God, this is terrific. We'll take over from here. And in the process of taking over, what was created in you, which was created in them, was this false self, this identification of who I am as something that has these. I'll go through them very, very quickly because I want to get to something I think even more important. And I've talked about this a lot, and it's in the shift, and you'll see it in the film. But it's the components of this ego. See, it isn't too great a stretch for me to say that if everything that we needed for the physical journey was handled for us in the moment of our spark of moving from non-being to being, if everything that we needed in that tiny little infinitesimally small spark of life, you could put 1 billion of them on the head of a pin, that's how small it was, that everything you needed, there was a future pull in there, and everything you needed for this physical journey was handled there for you. And look around you, it was. Your height, your weight, your eye color, virtually everything about you as a physical being was handled for you. There was nothing for you to do. It's not that great a stretch for me to say that if everything that you needed for the physical journey was handled, that everything you needed for the rest of the journey was handled in there as well. If you just keep your hands off of it, if you just let it be, the Beatles had it right. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. There will come an answer. Let it be. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary says to me, whisper words of wisdom, let it be, let it be, let it be. Just let it be. Just let it be. But we don't. We practice non-interference. I talked about it on the PBS special. For that, I have a friend, her name is Carrie. She has 2 little girls, and she brought them over for me to babysit. And my grandson, Carter, was there. So it was my grandson, Carter, 4 years old, Kamiley, maybe 5 years old, Kylie, 7 years old. And she was going off to shop. And she said, could you watch the 3 children? They're going to be at the pool. I said, I think I can handle that. She said, but I'm going to be gone for a couple of hours, and these are all the things that you'll need to watch. I said, I don't need anything. I'm fine. Yes, but they're going to fight and they're going to argue. And I said, no, you don't have to worry about that. I'm a Taoist master. I can handle this. So she left, and she said, are you sure? Because, I can take one of them with me, and I can. And I said, no, I can handle it. I had 8 kids. I can handle this. It's fine. So within 3 minutes of her being gone, Kamiley comes running over to me, calls me Uncle Wayne. Uncle Wayne, Uncle Wayne, Carter, he splashed me. I put my hand up. I said, I'm a Taoist master. I have absolutely no interest in what you're telling me. Splashing is a part of what happens when you're around the water. It's going to happen probably some more. But. 5 minutes later, my grandson comes up. He calls me Bampa, Grandpa, Bampa. Bampa. Miley, she threw water at me. She just said, I said, Carter, try to imagine how little I care. I have absolutely no interest in this whatsoever. But Bampa. It took about 10 minutes, and then Kylie was going to come over, and she came running up to me, and she looked at me, and she said, he doesn't care. And for the next 2 hours, I had no problem. Non-interference. letting go, letting God, allowing. And somehow I know that the part of the journey towards enlightenment, it's really about, honestly, it's about letting go. It's about doing less and accomplishing more. It's about not struggling. It's about, in the Tao, Lao Tzu speaks about water all the time. Live like water. It's the softest substance in the world, and yet it's the strongest. It stays low. Practice radical humility. It goes from the high places all the way down to the low. Why is the ocean the strongest force on the universe, on our planet rather? Because it stays low. It lets the streams and rivers fight and work, but they all end up down here. Stay that way. Find God in nature. All of these kinds of things I learned and practiced. But the ego teaches us that who we are is not this divine being, that if we let it go and just guided but stepped aside and allowed. And when Sky was singing those songs and said, thank you when it came my time to go. Thank you for the freedom when it came my time to go. Who am I to tell my own children that they should do what I want them to do when I never did any of that my entire life? And when she wanted to drop out of school and out of college at the University of Miami and pursue singing and go out, she said, Dad, I just can't listen to one more lecture on music theater. I want to sing. I want to write my own music. But she thought she was disappointing me. If you knew how much the tuition was there, you could know there was no being upset about that at all. No, I'm kidding. The idea that I should be imposing or telling her what to do. When Serena went and applied for law school and got in within a month or so, took the LSAT, got a high score, went over, got herself accepted to law school. And she was there for about 3 weeks. And she said, this is just something that I do not want to be doing. And she had a knowing, because I always knew that you not only have to experience what you don't want, you have to experience what you do want and what you don't want. You have to experience those things. I spent 4 years in the military knowing that this is not what I wanted to be, someone who took orders and dressed just like everybody else. There are other people who do these things, but not for me. And I understood that with her, and she sent me a text message, and I let it sit there for about 6 or 7 hours, and she was so worried that I was going to be disappointed because I remember helping her write her, her essay to get in. I said, you're not going to write the kind of essay that everybody else writes they want to get into law school. We're going to write an essay that's going to knock their socks off, And she got accepted. And she left, and I said, you leave with my blessing. You do what you know that you have to do. And the same with Tracy when she decided to leave and so on. It's like practicing a kind of respect for a person's higher self, that this little being, Khalil Gibran put it this way, he said, your children are not your children. They are the products of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not for you. They come through you. So the ego says who you are, and you were taught this. Every one of you in this room, including myself, we were taught this. Who you are is what you accumulate. So accumulate more. Get as much stuff as you can. The problem with what you accumulate is if that's how you identify who you are, then when you no longer have what you've accumulated, who you are has gone out the window as well. And in a recession, when people find themselves not having the stuff that they had before, they find themselves depressed, needing to take drugs, anxious, suicidal, because they have a false belief. The ego is a false self. You are not what you have. The ego also says not only are what you have, but you are what you do. So you have to accomplish a lot. So you go off to school and you set goals and you get good grades. None of my children ever saw me ask them for the report cards their whole life. It just wasn't a big deal to me. You're going to school. These are your grades. This is your life. I'm here to support you, guide you. But you don't have to get good grades because of me. My daughter Summers called me the other day. She said, I'm going to make you so proud next May because I'm going to graduate from college, and you never thought I would. I said, honey, that won't make me proud at all. I'm not interested in that whatsoever. If you want to graduate from college, it's your choice. I'll be there, and I love you. But things that make me proud are who you are, the being that you are. You don't have to satisfy me or fulfill me in any way. It's a hard lesson, but it's also one of, I have 8 children, and I'm close to every one of them. Love every one of them, and they love me. I feel it and know it in my bones every day. And it's because one of the reasons is that I do not live and fulfill my destiny and my dharma through them any more than I expect them to do it through me. I just don't go that way. You are not what you have, and you are not what you do. The problem with what you do, the Tao says, do nothing and get everything done. Let go. Allow. The ego says, I have to do more. And there's a real irony in this. It's very hard to explain this to people, but you can get more done by doing less. That's one of the verses in the Tao that I worked on, and I swim every day in the ocean. Every day. Usually an hour a day, freestyle, in the open ocean. Or I do it at the pool if I'm on the road. And I decided to see if I could swim by doing nothing. Just propel myself through the water, but take the effort out. Just let myself go through the water and just allow. Just allow my body to move through the water the way it knows how to do. And I stopped working at it and stopped trying. I swam better, faster, less stress. It's one of those amazing things. I mean, I watch the really great athletes. I watch Michael Jordan. And I don't think he's out there doing what he does because he's trying so hard. It's like, and people will say to me, well, when you write or when you speak, you make it look so easy. It's because I repeat, before I get introduced for a talk like this, I repeat a line from A Course in Miracles. And this line says that if you knew who walked beside you at all times on this path that you have chosen, you could never experience fear or doubt again. And I don't deliver the talks. God gives all the talks, builds all the bridges, writes all the books, and I just allow it to flow through me. And some of you may be thinking, yeah, but you can't really live in today's world that way. But I came out of an orphanage and have been able to amass a nice life's work, touching the lives of millions of people and having lots and lots of all the things that people want to come into their life show up, to a place now where I don't even connect myself to it, I just let it go. The ego says not only are what you have and what you do, but you're also what other people think of you. So these are the 3 main components that you learned about your false self. You are what you have, so you accumulate more. You are what you do, get a lot of achievements, and you are what other people think of you. Be concerned about your reputation. The Tao says, you are not what you have less. Give away all that you have. One of the things I learned at the Tao, I just gave everything away I had, and now it's all back again. And now I have to go through my closets all the time and give clothes away to people who don't have clothes, and give books away, and so on. It's this freeing notion that we came from nothing, and we return to nothing. So let nothingness, silence, the void, let it become the guiding principle in your life. The ego also taught us that we are separate from each other and separate from what's missing in our lives and separate from God. There's a wonderful piece in here that I must share with you. It says, if this trend towards separation continues, the situation will become so terrible that men will end by exterminating each other. Instead of finding any joy or pleasure in being together, they will be overcome by such a sense of hostility at the sight of other human beings that they will massacre each other, just like that, for no reason. Can you imagine? This is why we are learning more and more how to love, help, and understand others so as to come closer and closer to the state of unity. But the hardest thing in the world today is to try to convince human beings of this. They simply cannot get it into their heads. You can get them to understand electronics, pure mathematics, but they cannot not understand this question of unity. They cannot see the point of it. Initiates, on the other hand, seek nothing but this, the path that leads back to the perfect unity. Inwardly, we are one. In our spirit, we are all one, but this oneness has not yet been achieved on the physical plane. It is this that remains to be achieved. We just don't get it. We just don't get that there is a oneness. The Native Americans had it right. They said, no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves. That we all originated in the same place. We return to the same place. What I have been learning the last 6 months, what I've been teaching, this higher self is one that teaches about serving, about giving, about reverence for all of life, about simplicity, about gentleness, about nonviolence, but essentially it's about seeing yourself in others and seeing others in yourself, no matter who they are. The lady who cleans my toilet at the hotel is just as divine a being. Mother Teresa said, in every day I see Jesus Christ in all of his distressing disguises. That's the higher self at work. As you begin to move to this place of serving, giving, offering, rather than the inner mantra of what's in it for me, how much can I get? As you begin to make that shift, and we have to make this shift, because now we're producing generations of kids who are going to live not as long as we do. Do we want that for our kids? Do we want to give them a food supply that is contaminated? Do we want them to be addicted to taking pills for everything that they do in their life? Do we want a third of our children to be so inactive that they're obese? A third of them? We have to shift that consciousness, and it has to take place within each and every one of us. So the shift away from ego is to the place of meaning, where you ultimately get yourself, you know, the Course in Miracles says that you live in an insane world, and the breadth of that insanity you can't even begin to comprehend. The only way that you can counteract it is by moving to that higher place within yourself, getting that current running between the highest place within you and the lowest place. You are not what you have. You are not what you do. You are not what others think of you. You are not separate from anyone. You are not separate from what's missing in your life. There is no place that this Tao is not, that God is not. If there's no place that it is not, then it's in you. And if there's no place that it's not, it is also in everything that you perceive to be missing from your life. It's also in that. All you have to do is realign yourself in such a way that you do what Einstein said. He said, when they asked him about quantum physics, he said, "It's of no interest to me whatsoever. It's just all details." He said, "The only thing I want to do is to learn to think like God thinks." How does the source of all things, how does it think? It is only giving. It doesn't ask anything in return. Listen to the great Hafiz, the great Persian poet. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Just think what a love like that can do. It lights up the whole world. That kind of a love. That kind of a shift to the highest place within you. You are God. You are God. That's not blasphemous. The God that most people in Western culture and Eastern culture represent is a God of the ego. It's just like the ego. It wants more. It demands revenge. It plays favorites. It wants to have opulence around it. That's a God of the ego. The God I'm speaking about, the source that I'm speaking about, is one that doesn't play favorites. It's in everything and everyone. And if there's a story told of an avatar, a little boy who lived back in the 13th century. And everybody in the village in Nepal knew that wherever he went, he was like God walking. He would be seen in 2 places in the village at the same time. He would be of such a countenance that his presence would heal people. They would just be healed just by being in his presence. Christ consciousness, city consciousness. And the elders in the tribe got together and they said, I'll give you an orange if you can tell us where God is. And the little boy responded, I will manifest 2 oranges if you can tell me where God isn't. That there's no place that it is not. This source of all is everywhere. There's no place that it is not. And if you know that, then you're already connected to everything that you perceive to be missing from your life. You let go and return to that place of your origination. And in that place of your origination, you allowed it to take care of you, rather than you interfering and taking care of it. And in the little book, The Shift, I speak about, in the opening chapter, about this idea. I call it your fromness, where you came from. There was nothing for you to do, and everything was taken care of. Seems like such a contradiction. Well, I've also invited somebody else here tonight that I want to introduce you to and share a little bit about with you. And you're going to be just astounded by this. If you saw my public television special, you saw him on my PBS special. He has written since then a book. His name is Dan Caro. And Dan, in his second year on St. Patrick's Day in 1982, when he was 2 years of age, he was playing in a garage. His mother was outside the garage, and there was a can of gasoline in the garage floor, and a spark from the water heater went off and ignited it, and the whole place went up in flame, including Dan. And he was burned beyond recognition and told that he could never live and would never survive. He's had 80-some surgeries. He has no hands. I've seen him in a bathing suit. He has almost no feet. His entire body has been grafted from just a few of the places that weren't burned. And he has lived his life having to face obstacles that most people would never even dream of. When I met him, I found out that he was a musician. Not just a musician, but a world-class musician. He went to university down in Louisiana, was a part of their band, is now his own practicing musician. And I asked him to please write this book, to which I wrote the foreword. It's called The Gift of Fire. And I titled this book for him when he asked me what I thought the title should be, because he speaks of what happened to him and what he had to go through, not only as a struggle for him, but as a gift. So this is one of the great reads. If you buy anything else this weekend, get a copy of The Gift of Fire, especially if you think you got troubles. It's just so beautifully written. I love it. I love this man, and he's going to talk to you for a few moments, and he's even going to play the drums for you without any hands. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, my buddy, Danny Caro. Here he is. Hey, Danny. Go for it. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, first of all, it's an honor to share with you tonight. I'm so inspired lately with the release of the book. I'm on fire. I feel like literally I'm on fire, you know. The Gift of Fire, it's appropriately named, I think. Thank you so much for that too, Wayne. And thank you once again for writing that forward. That was so beautiful. But throughout my life, I've had lots of opportunities to make excuses about why I can't succeed. And a lot of people told me that, you know, nobody would think less of you if you didn't push so hard if you didn't fight so hard to fit in or to excel in whatever. And I said, you know what, I didn't really push. I never really did anything. All I wanted to do was just be an equal, to be seen as equal to everyone else. I never thought about excelling, beyond the normal ability level of anybody. I just wanted to fit in and be an equal. No matter what it took, that was my thing. No matter what it took, I was going to be able to do the normal day-to-day tasks that I felt that I needed to do, like buttoning shirts, tying shoes, which was a major, major, major struggle for me. And I consider it the greatest achievement of my life. Now, when I was burned, I lost my fingers, lots of my hand, toes, as Wayne said, lost my hair. But I wanted to be able to tie my shoes because my peers were tying their shoes. Now, I have a reconstructed thumb that I could barely use. I had no dexterity. I couldn't grip the shoelaces. On my right hand, they tried to do the same thing as the left, but it didn't really take too well. I have practically no grip on this hand. It was very difficult to grab the laces. And I struggled with this for what seemed like an eternity. 7 years. Until I was able to successfully tie my shoes. Now I've wised up. I wear slip-ons now. But I succeeded at that task. And I wasn't going to allow the daily failure deter me from succeeding. And when I look back at that, when I was in it, seems like it was an eternity. But now, the blink of an eye. But that 7-year struggle has built something up inside of me. I feel this ability to achieve anything. So shortly after that victory, I started playing drums. And I come from a very, very musical city, New Orleans. But how does a guy with no hands grip drumsticks? Well, in my mind, if I just tied my shoes, I could do anything, and I'm going to do it. So I said, whatever it takes. And I sat down with my dad, and I got a drum instructor, and we put our heads together, and we created a method for me, which I'll show you in a little bit. But I have to admit, Wayne, I've been making an excuse for a lot of my life. Even though I was able to tie my shoes and play drums, I had one thing that I wanted to do more than pretty much anything. And I said that I was probably not going to be able to do it because I couldn't grip ski poles. But people thought I was crazy, told my family and friends, I'm going to go ski. I've got no toes, a very oddly shaped foot that creates a lot of issues with the boots. But I said, whatever it takes. I've always loved the Olympics and wanted to be a downhill skier. So I decided to move to Steamboat Springs, Colorado to pursue a dream that I had. And people thought I was crazy. But you know what? One season later, at 30 years old, I'm an all-mountain skier. And I compete in racing tournaments. Thank you. And it's a dream that I had, a vision, a passion. And I wasn't going to allow the fact that I couldn't use poles to prevent me from skiing. And I don't use poles. But I use drumsticks. And I want to show you guys how I play the drums. But I don't want to keep this joy that I have from playing tonight. I want you guys to play with me. So I'm going to show you guys how I play the drums, and then we're going to do a little rhythmic response. I want you guys to emulate by clapping what I do. And then we're going to see how far we can get with this. We're going to have a good time right now. So. Well, first, how does a guy with no hands hold a drumstick? On my left hand, I had that reconstructed thumb. On my right hand, I use a tennis wristband with rubber bands wrapped around it. This is my hand. I slip it over my wrist, put the drumstick inside, and I've got full control. It took 1 month to develop this technique, and I've had a lot of fun with it. So we're gonna get to going. I'm gonna do some rhythms, and you guys try to keep up. Ready? Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Danny. Dan Caro, ladies and gentlemen. Dan Caro.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
I love you.
See ya. Love you.